Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be giving you guys a complete cheat sheet for this season in ranked and a bit of the next season as well until the update. So this will be good for at least 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm going to be going through every single game mode, every single map, giving you guys the best first picks, the best last picks, and then just good brawlers in between as well. So I'll be just running through the draft, and hopefully you guys can progress a lot more in ranked, because we're getting towards the nitty-gritty bit in ranked where we want to try and get towards that pro ranked. Most people won't be able to get there, even myself included. I'm struggling, but at least to masters, to maximize as much rewards as possible. So let's start off with dry season bounty. So I'll be putting a timestamp also for all of these game modes and maps in the description if you guys want to see. But let's take a look. Dry season. The common theme here in bounty is that Mandy's one of the best first picks because of the hypercharge. Jean's always a safe pick. Gray's really good with the walking cane. Lumi is good on a select few bounty maps because she's still got really good area control, but you can just leave your attacks, well, your axes in a certain place, whatever they're called, and then, you know, the opponents are going to have to run through that, especially if they have the lead in bounty. That's where she's really good because they've got to push into you. It's really toxic with the gadget. Angelo's just a really safe pick in bounty right now with the Pierce gadget. If you're facing off against Jean or other annoying brawlers, you can use the jump as well, but he's really flexible. Ollie as well, really good because there's not a lot of Poco in bounty, and the only really big counter to Ollie here is probably like RT. There's other really annoying picks on this map as well. Squeak with the wind-up gadget is insane. It's so toxic. Piper's really good on this map because, of course, Piper's good in bounty, but good to break open the map, especially if people are hiding behind that back stage. And then in terms of late picks, you just got to be careful of the throwers. So don't just go like 3 squishy brawlers. Make sure you got at least 1 brawler that can at least break open the map, be aggro, or of course a thrower yourself. So good for our late picks. You know, Grom's really good. You've got counters to those throws. You've got like Mortis, you've got Kit, you've got Mr. P. The common mistake I see a lot of time is picking Mr. P early in the draft. It never ends well because you're not going to get a hypercharge with Mr. P in bounty really, and even so it's not anything game breaking, so just bear that in mind. But don't just go complete snipers as well, because you can get pushed back easily. You've got to have a bit of everything. At least 1 brawler that can shoot through walls or destroy walls or over walls like throwers. So now moving on to Hideout here, your best picks on your screen right here. So Hideout is kind of the same here, where snipers aren't as good as you actually think. You're probably going to get away with going snipers for the most part because players don't know how to counter them appropriately, especially on, you know, Hideout seems an open map, but you can get a lot of pressure and force opponents back into a really tough spot. So again, the same type of first picks, they're going to be good everywhere. Jean's just really good on long range maps, just stopping the opponents from healing up. He's got Vengeful Spirits as well to confirm kills or just get more pressure. Lumi as well is so insane on Hideout. Mandy as well. I always end up banning Mandy or Angelo because they're just really good brawlers and they're hard to take down a lot of the time. So good surprising brawlers on a map like this. Maybe Meeple with the Mansions of Meeple gadget, I think it's called. The Sprout Wall. You can just throw it out. You can get a lot of control, so it can be pretty good. Again, Piper's a brawler that I really like. Even if you're facing off against counters, what you can do with Piper, you know, you hit like 3 shots and then you can break open a little bit of the map, and then that stops the really annoying brawlers. Again, Leon's going to be a really underrated brawler here with his gadgets, and you can just cycle it like crazy, especially against those snipers. And it's just the same bounty brawlers. Again, you just got to make sure. The one thing that I like to do is if I don't have first pick, I end up banning Nanny because Nanny's such a good like counter pick option, especially later on in the draft. So I end up just banning Nanny a lot of the times, and then, you know, you're kind of safe to go snipers because most people don't know how to really counter them with like the likes of Leon's. So that's going to be good in your draft. And yeah, that's just a typical Hideout brawlers here. Now moving on to layer cake here, your best picks on your screen right here. So again, the common consensus that I've seen a lot of people go wrong here is to go snipers too much. You might get away with 1 decent sniper in the middle, but for the most part, you're going to get pushed back. Look at the amount of walls. Stop going snipers. Go these in-between brawlers that are really good. For example, Janet is the perfect choice here because she's got some decent range. She can peek shot. Her gadget's going to get a lot of value as well. Squeak, again, it's kind of like that sniper hybrid right now with the wind-up gadget, so you can get away with it. Even since the nerf, he's a really good asset. Throws are going to be really good on this map. There's a ton of walls, and then counters to throws are going to be good, so that's why Ollie's good. Gray's good. Carl's really good. You've got the likes of, again, just more aggressive options later on in the draft, which I really like on this map. You know, Hank, he's going to be a great option later on. Shade, he's going to be a great option. Mortis, Kit. So again, the common theme here, don't go, especially as 2 and 3, pretty much in every game mode. Just don't go too brawlers that are going to get countered by like assassins, because again, you might think, oh well, we have last pick, we can counter them with that, but no, it doesn't matter. If you've got like a, I don't know, Mr. P and you've got a Penny, or you've got a Mr. P and you've got like a Bell or a Sniper, though the opponent's just going to go like Kit and then something aggressive. They're going to go like Shade, Buzz, Hank, and run all over you. So don't make that mistake here. You got to make sure that you at least got one brawler that's okay against it. So that's why I like the likes of you know, RT. That's why I like Pearl. That's why I like these brawlers that can still counter tanks. And lastly, for Bounty, we have Shooting Star here. Best picks on the screen right here. So literally nothing has changed in Shooting Star. The same brawlers as we always see. The only big difference I'd say is that Lumi's more of a viable option. Ollie later on in the draft more viable. We'll say that Mandy's became like the best brawler on Shooting Star, maybe. Nanny as well is an insane pick on Shooting Star. I always tend to go Nanny. Again, I'll put it a bit lower on my list here because I tend to face a lot of people that know how to counter Nanny, you know, with Max, with Leon, etc. But still such a good pick, you know, Juju in the middle. So the way that a draft goes, really, I end up just banning Gray if the opponents have first pick, just because Gray is such a good brawler to float around the middle. He'll counter pretty much every brawler that you can think of. But what I like doing, if there's no, with Gray's banned out, I kind of leave that mid pick to later on in the draft because I want to get the best snipers down the lane. So that's just one drafting tip that I use in Shooting Star. So for example, Gray's banned. You know, the opponents might get Jeans, but I don't really care about that because I know Jean's decent. He can be a lane brawler as well. But, you know, I could go like Penny into that even. I could even go Mr. P. I could still go like Grom with the Watchtower gadget to tank a Gene Pool. You know what I mean? There's a couple of good options you can still go into that, whilst I would rather take a good lane brawler like a Piper if it's available, like a Nanny, like, I don't know, Gus, for example. You want to make sure you're locking down those good lanes first. I'm going to move on to the next game mode. It's Brawl, starting off with center stage. So center stage, it plays very much like Sneaky Fields in terms of the drafting. That'll be a few, you know, small little things to consider. Center stage, I think you do need a little bit more scouting rather than Sneaky Fields. So you've seen the best picks already. With center stage, I just see so much Carl. Carl is so good into everything. The Fire Gadget, we only received a small nerf, and he's got even better in this meta, so abuse Carl as much as possible. Lumi with unlimited control. Lumi is the best brawler in the game. I predicted it in my tier list, guys. Just go Lumi absolutely everywhere. Chester with a hypercharge is absolutely dumb broken. The brawler that I actually struggle with the most, and have been for a long while now, is Janet. I end up banning Janet no matter what, because I know you can run it down, but your randoms won't know the synergy between Poco and tanks and running it down, you know, with Max, etc. So I'll just end up banning Janet, so I know I don't have to face her because her hypercharge is so annoying and her vision gadget is just so annoying. But for the most part, I think you're safe to just pick her because it's one of those secret picks where majority of players don't know she's that good. Poco, again, Poco's really good because you can just switch his build around. You can play both star powers and both gadgets and you're good to go in the draft. And he pairs well with so many different brawlers here in center stage. And then Ollie's going to be really good. The problem with Ollie, you've got, if you play him early on the draft, the opponent can go Poco, protective tunes, and counter him. So it'd only really go Ollie in game modes like Brawl and Hot Zone if Poco's banned, or if you can combine Poco with an Ollie, if you get what I mean. Again, Lou's really good, but you got to be careful of the Pocos. Stu can be really good, but it can get ran down too easily. Mr. P is good on this map because you're actually going to face a lot of tanks, which will feed his hype charge, which is actually pretty good as long as you got tank counters along with him. You got a lot of variants here though, with like Buster, that's really good. Melody can be, Sandy needs it. There's so many options on a bushy map and Brawl, and just stay away from those low DPS brawlers on center stage. So I'd only really pick Meeple later on in a draft because those tanks that you can see on the screen, they're going to run you down. So now moving on to Pinball Dreams. Here, your best picks on the screen right here. So Pinball Dreams, it is a very rock, paper, scissors map in the sense that, again, you've got to be careful of throws. Not as good as they used to be, but still got to be a bit wary of them later on in the draft. But more so, you've got to be wary of those tanks. So again, just go tank counters or tanks and you should be good to go because most of them should be able to take down those throwers. So in terms of picks that I really like here, Meeple's a very good option because you can play Meeple lane, you can play Meeple in the middle. B, literally, Pinball Dreams is so easy to win your mid match with B, especially with Rascal's Hive. Stu's good because you can play mid if needs be, but you can switch over both gadgets, break up the map if needs to be. You can put Speed Zone in the back if they've got nothing to destroy it, so really good options. In terms of, again, sleeper picks, likes of Janet's going to be really good here. Mo is a really good sleeper pick here because you can wall peek really well on a map like Pinball Dreams, and then your super's going to get a lot of value, whether it's throwers, etc. But likes of Finks, really underrated here. In terms of overrated, Rico is insanely overrated. Might be good at lower ranks, but not really the best at high ranks. And good late picks. There's so many good late picks on a map like Pinball Dreams. Tanks are going to go crazy. So what I always say, try and go mid that's decent into tanks, and then try and go a good anti-tank, at least one of them down the lanes, whether that's like a Chester, whether that's like a Lou, something like that. You need to be careful of those tanks. So moving on to sneaker fields, here your best picks on the screen right here. So sneaker fields, pretty much the exact same picks that I picked on center stage. Whilst with sneaky fields, it is more about trying to just push into the middle and then just gaining control. You could just literally just sit in the middle, and your opponents, they're going to be forced back to that lower grass area. That's what you want in sneaky fields. That plays a little bit different to center stage because everybody's always in the grass at all times in center stage pretty much. So best picks, Carl again, just so good because his pickaxe can just easily scout around the lanes, and the fire gadget is so broken. Chester's so broken on a map like this, being able to sneak up to people and just burst them down really easily. Again, my drafting tips here is making sure you're trying to lock down a good mid that's good into everything. I mean, you could play Janet mid here, but wherever you go Poco and you go to tank route, wherever you go the B, whether you go like a Max can pair really well with so many anti-tanks, for example. Just don't get caught going those low DPS brawlers early on in the draft because you're going to get run over pretty quickly. We see this happening in monthly finals a lot, where the opponent will go like a Janet or like a Stu, and then the other team will just draft, I don't know, like a Frank and a Poco, or just two big beefy brawlers and just run it down and win the game like that. So do go a lot of your tanks because tank ads aren't as good as they were in previous metas. Just run it down as much as possible. Moving on to the final Brawl map, we have triple dribble here. Best picks on the screen right here. So this is probably the best throw map in the Brawl rotation. Again, it's not as thrower heavy as it used to be. The throws has definitely fallen down because you could always go like Larry, Barley, etc. And I don't think you can really do that in this meta, mainly because of likes of Ollie. You've got Carl as well, that's just running around the meta like crazy. You've got Hank late picks, you've got Shade, Buzz, all of these tanks that are just too aggressive and the throws just can't deal with it. Again, there's not really much variance in the Brawl meta, in my opinion. The same type of brawlers just get picked time and time again, and it's just you work around it in draft. You know, if Melody's picked early on, then you can go with like tank counters. If Melody's picked later on, you're probably screwed because they're a good Melody player. They'll just take over the game. So brawlers that I really like on this map, which probably go under the radar again, Mo goes completely under the radar on a map like this. Finks goes completely under the radar on a map like this. Gray as well. He can be a great counter to a lot of the mid options here because that walking cane just basically means if you hit that, you're going to two-tap so many of the mid brawlers on this map. So again, I've got not much ready to say about triple dribble. Just be careful of those tanks. And yeah, thrower late picks can be scary, but most of the time you want to have at least one aggressive brawler that can get into their faces and counter them. I'm going to be moving on to Brawl Hockey here, your best compositions for Brawl 0 on your screen right here. So with first picks, B is absolutely goated on a map like this. See how open it is. B just gets unlimited control and the ultimate defend brawler, and for pressure on the enemy goal with Rattled Hive. Can be really good, especially because there's a good strategy on this map in particular where you can just sit behind that back wall. Well, Rattled Hive makes it so you just get infinite value there, and you can push them away there. Gray, really good with walking cane to break up walls to score goals. His teleports can literally create so much space and it's unstoppable and score you easy goals on this mode. So I end up banning a lot of Gray. Melody's worth your good Melody. She's going to carry because that super can just create so much space and just get so many good angles. Max as well. The reason why Max is really good because what you can do on respawn, if you have a Max super, you can just literally run it down at the opponents. They won't have enough DPS to take you down and you just get a quick goal. Lumi again, Bell are really good here because there's a lot of like respawn moments. There's a lot of goals that happen in Brawl Hockey. So when on respawn, Bell gets so much pressure with just her normal main attack. Gus as well, nice open map. Janet as well, really good. You've got to be careful when you use this super though, because you can leave your teammates in a bad position, but you can also get in a really good position, chip the opponents down, and then land in a really good spot. Stu's of course really good in Brawl Hockey. Charlie's one of the most underrated in Brawl Hockey right now. The super allows you just to get a free goal or really good defense, and then you've got this Spider's gadget that counters so many of the top Brawl Hockey brawlers like Meeple, for example, like B, like Gray, even like soft counters other snipers like Gus and Bell. So Charlie's definitely up in the Brawl Hockey meta in my opinion. Chester can be pretty good as well. You know, you've got your Pocos. It's a bit more of an open map though, so a bit more sniper friendly here. Moving on to the next map, it's Cool Box. Ignore what I put on the graphic, by the way. You can see the map. But anyways, Cool Box, again, reminds me very much of the same type of brawlers that I've seen there, except for the fact that you probably get away with a bit more aggression here. I know it's nice and open, but you want to push the opponents all the way back to that last L wall, and then your tanky brawlers can definitely just literally walk it in. There's just nothing that you can even do. So with Brawl 0, the biggest annoyance here is if you've got a lot of mobility, there's hardly anything you can do to stop them from just... So for example, if you've got a maximum melody, you want to run down their left hand lane, because they're just, if they try and push down that your left, they're just going to get killed instantly. So that's why brawlers like Max, Grey, and Melody, I try and pick or ban as much as possible. These three brawlers are so good at scoring, especially on respawn. You could just work all game to get a really good goal, and then they can just pop supers and then just score a goal instantly. There's nothing you can do about it, so be wary of that. Maybe some big DPS brawlers, maybe some brawlers that have got really good stun supers to stop that, or else you just can't do anything about it. Or of course ban it or pick it yourself. So again, Ollie's really good for that reason. Stu as well can just be good to float around. And my advice for Brawl Hockey is that you can go a lot of different... Well, you can't go a lot. The same brawlers are played everywhere here, but it's just all about how you play. Just make sure you got to position really well. That's all it is in Brawl Hockey. Position yourself, hit shots, try and wait for the opponents to make mistakes, and then you can score easily. That's literally it. The same brawlers are always going to be useful. I don't think you can really outdraft too much here. On to the next map, we have Starr Garden here. Best picks on the screen right here. So in terms of big differences, I just think Melody's a bit better. Carl's really good because there's a bit more walls, so he can peek shot a lot easier. Stu as well, it's a little bit less open, so he's going to get less outranged by the snipers, so he can push up more easier, and it's just more space for him. Again, big difference is Meeple is probably a lot better here because there's just more walls, so then Meeple can push up to those walls, and then Rage Quit's going to get you a free goal in Brawl Hockey. Probably one of the best Brawl Hockey brawlers for sure. Bell can be good in the middle. So again, my big draft tips is that, again, Charlie is so incredibly underrated on a map like this, because you're probably going to face a couple of snipers. You're probably going to face Meeple, and then Charlie countering into those brawlers is really good. I like going Bell and Charlie a lot in combination, because that can just counter first pick Bees or Meeples, and there's not much that the opponents can really go into that, especially if Janet is banned. Other good picks, you've got like Poco that can counter Ollie or just combine really well with an Ollie or a tank yourself to try and score. Underrated strategies, you've got Buster with a pool gadget, you've got Sandy with a stun. It might work against everything, but definitely keep an eye on it. And then again, you've got run it down strategies that are really underrated in Brawl Hockey, because they just don't have the DPS to take down. So like Fang late picks can be really good in Brawl Hockey, but I've not spoken about in the other maps. Probably better on a more open map. You've also got like Jackie just running it down with her HP, BB as well. So be wary of that. You're definitely not going to have a ton of tank counters in Brawl Hockey, but if you can sneak one in there, you probably... It's best advice, because you don't want to get run down by those Jackies. Finally, for Brawl Hockey, we have Super Center here. Best picks on your screen right here. So plays very similar to the previous map. Again, the same type of brawlers. Tanks are going to be even better here, and the likes of Hank are insanely underrated. But again, I just see so much Meeple with Rage Quit. I see that one typical brawler in the middle. You know, normally want a B. B's the best option in the middle, but then Max is really solid, and then Bell later on to maybe counter the B, etc. There's just so many brawlers you gotta be wary of in Brawl Hockey, so I wouldn't even be wary too much of like who you've got to pick. There's just so many good brawlers that the strategy around drafting, it is hard to outdraft in a game mode like Brawl Hockey, in my personal opinion. It comes down to your literal gameplay and your positioning, because there's so many good brawlers that you can go. You just gotta be wary of their goal strategies. So for example, like Grey, his goal strategies are gonna try and pin you back and then get a shot off, and then maybe like gadget you out of the way and score, or maybe a quick super goal. So just all about positioning and making sure you got some good defensive brawlers that can't get run all over. So again, that's why I really like Chester, that's why I really like Charlie, because they're good defensively, and then you always need one good offensive brawler. So like a Grey, like a Melody, like a Stu, like a Carl, like an Ollie. There's a lot of offensive brawlers that will score your goals. You need a mixture of all of them. Okay, so now moving on to gem grab, starting off with Double Swoosh here. Your best picks on your screen right here. So with Double Swoosh, again, the annoying brawlers are going to be the likes of Janet, because you can play a mid or lane, slap the vision gear onto her and speed gear, and you're going to be pretty much unstoppable. Ollie as well, the space that he can create with a super and his gadget is just too good, and there's not a lot of really good Ollie counters out there, because you can always dodge it with your jumper gadget. So he's insane. Lumi again, you can play as a mid or a lane, insane. Jean's going to be really good because it's Jean, vision gear, amazing. Mr. P as well, because even if there's some tanks, you can get countered, but the hype charge is just so good at countering the other mid brawlers. As long as you got some decent tank counters down your lane, you should be good to go. Stu as well, I'm starting to like it a little bit less on a map like this, but you can still never really go wrong with a Stu. So really good picks that I'm liking of Finks. Finks is insane on double swoosh. He's so good. That main attack can just scout so easily. He's got some decent damage against tanks. You got to be careful though. Make sure you got the vision gear on or else don't go him. But again, any trouble, you can just press your gadget and just rewind back in time and it can save you pretty easily. Chester is insane on this map as well with vision gear and just creeping up onto people. You don't even need vision gear to be honest. You can just run up to them with the damage gear and just burst them down. Carl as well, even against your tougher matchups, as long as you just hit one fire gadget onto him, you're probably going to get a trade most of the time. Sandy as well can be a really annoying brawler here, so to me it's just like the mid battle you got to be careful of, because there's a lot of mids that counter the other mids, if that makes sense. So for example, if you pick Jean early on, well, they might go Penny to counter your Jean pool. If you go Penny, well, the opponent could go like a Squeak to counter you, or like a Bow to open up the map and counter Penny a little bit more. So be careful of that kind of mid warfare that goes on. And then with lanes, you know, making sure that you got one good tank counter, like I said, normally down the defensive lane so nobody can push and harm your gem carrier. So that's why I like Chester down the left. That's why I like Pearl down the left, because by the time you're heated up, the opponent's going to push into you. Well, they're pretty much dead by one gadget. Blue as well, really like. Tara can be good offensive lane. Amber's not as good as she used to be. And good late picks, your normal tanks. So now moving on to Gem 4 here, your best picks on your screen right here. So Gem 4 is a difficult one because you could have control the entire game and there's just one instance where the opponent might slip behind your line and just take down your gem carrier. So it's a very, very messy map. I just realized I didn't include a sick pick totally on the right hand side. It doesn't even matter. So Gem 4, most of the time Meeple's going to be your best option, because what you can do with Meeple, you can use your gadget to break open those grass points. So what I tend to do a lot of the time, I'll probably use my first gadget in the mid to gain me some control, but I'll try and throw a gadget left, try and throw a gadget right, especially if you don't have tanks yourself. Break open the grass and you'll always know whether they're going to be sneaking behind your lines. That's the biggest thing that you've got to be careful of. Making sure that you're always conscious about somebody creeping up behind you. So I know it's hard to communicate with teammates, but just be wary of that. And maybe take matters into your own hands and try and scout out those areas. Just keep control of where all three players are at all time. So again, really underrated picks. Finks, you can play Finks as a mid, you can play Finks as lane, really good at scouting the grass. Carl, again, is so good at peeking around walls like this, and your fire gadget is going to be insane. Squeak later on in draft can be pretty good. Poco's going to be a good mid. Not many like brawlers can actually counter Poco in the middle here, because Poco's good into max, Poco's good into other mids that are squishy. As long as you're just using your presence, like you don't have to like run into them and take them down and get in range of them. Just use your presence, use your HP, pick up the gems, be annoying, and try and pair well with your teammates. In terms of other good picks as well, you know, Surge is a pretty underrated pick on this map. You've got Sandy, that can be pretty annoying, but only later on in the draft because it can get outranged. Rico's good late in the draft, so is Tara late in the draft as well. And later on in draft, those tanks can be pretty pesky. So now moving on to Hard Rock Mine here, your best picks on your screen right here. So in terms of from the, I think Masters below, Rico is going to be one of your best options. But as soon as it gets towards Masters, Rico is much easier to counter. So again, Masters above, I put Rico right at the bottom towards the good area, well towards the right. Again, probably put Rico as one of the best first picks below Masters. So in terms of really good options here, again, Meeple can be a good lane or a good mid. You can get ran down, but at the same time, you always gotta, if you pick Meeple, you're always gonna pick tank counters with him or a tank to go with him, so that can create you pressure and get some brawlers off your back. But yeah, Meeple's a good mid that I tend to use a lot of the time. Janet is so annoying, I end up banning all of the time. In terms of good lane options, you only really want one control lane option. So again, either you go a control option and a tank counter, or you go a control and a tank yourself. You get what I mean? You always want to switch up what you're going. You don't want to go 2 tanks and a mid. You don't want to go 2 tank counters and a mid. You need one of everything, or else you're going to get countered by one of the other things. It's always rock, paper, scissors in draft that you've got to take into consideration. So you can't just go like Juju and Penny down your lanes and expect to win, because that's not going to happen unless you have last pick. You get what I mean? Because your opponents are just going to run it down against you all of the time again with like a Mortis or like a Frank or something, or Buzz, and just going to keep the pressure on. And gem grab, it doesn't matter how many times you die, because as long as you're creating enough pressure, and if the opponent's taking so long to pinch you out, your gem carrier is going to pick up the gems. So that's why I don't care about my KD in a game mode like gem grab. I'm just getting pressure, getting as much value out of my lives. So again, the mid option, there's so many good mids that you don't really need to like first pick one, essentially. There's just so many different ones that you can go. And down the lanes, again, just be careful of those control brawlers, because they're incredibly overrated in Hard Rock Mine. So moving on to the final gem grab map, we have Undermine here, best picks on your screen right here. So Undermine is pretty much you win your lane, and it's nearly impossible to win back your lane without the help of the mid. So just bear that in mind. You need that first engagement as much as possible. So that's why I really like the likes of Finks, because Finks is a good scout brawler. What you can do with Finks is that you can peek around the walls really easily. So again, that's why I really like Janet. And that's why I also like, there's a couple of like tanks that I really enjoy playing here, because you can just push up to the wall and you can win your lane without even shooting. So that's why I really like Chester as well, because he got so much HP. You don't want any squishy brawlers on the lane in Undermine, because you can just use that HP, push into the bush, and you just win. It's just that plain and simple. So beware of that in Undermine. Again, you got your typical lane brawlers that you want a lot of range here, as much range as possible, because again, when you respawn, you're trying to push back down your lane. If you're very limited in range, well, that person in the bush, they're just going to have a free matchup. They're just going to continue spawn trapping you. So that's why, again, I like the likes of these bit longer range brawlers. So that's why Mo can be pretty good here, because he's got some decent range with the other star power. That's why I really like, you know, Squeak can definitely get you back into the bush. That's why I really like Janet. That's why I really like Chester. There's a lot of brawlers that I like for this reason. So don't go like 2 tanks, because else it could get spawn trapped. But then again, you want 1 tank, because just the HP alone can just win you the lane, and it forces the opponents to try and pinch you out. It's the only way they can get you out. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to Hot Zone, Dueling and Beetles here. Best picks on the screen right here. So with Dueling, Beetles is a pretty dicey one. So one brawler I really like going again is B, just so good at everything. Poco is going to be really good, especially paired with like a Stu, or just in general good at countering the Lus and the Ollies. Meeple again, just so good for control. This is actually a very control based game mode, in my opinion now. Like the tanks aren't as good as before, because I don't think Berry is as good as before, for example. So I really like the pennies as well. You can get away with going a lot of penny here, and Mr. P can be pretty good at countering just a lot of those sniper brawlers. In terms of later on in the draft, I don't think there's a ton of things you got to be careful of in Dueling Beetles. Just be careful of Sprout. That's probably the main one, because a lot of people tend to go like, I don't know, B, and then like Penny, I don't know, maybe like Grey or something. I don't know, something weird. I end up going, well, actually, Sprout's not that good into Grey, but you get what I mean. I end up going Sprout late pick a lot of times, or the exact opposite, where you don't have any tank counters. So again, your opponent's probably gone like Sprout a little bit too early on. They've gone like a Lu, and then they've gone like a Penny or a Janet or something, where Mortis can just absolutely destroy them. So Dueling Beetles, make sure we got at least a couple of control brawlers and at least 1 zone brawler, so like a Lu or somebody that can sit on a zone that has some decent amount of HP. So now moving on to Open Business here, your best picks on your screen right here. So I haven't had too much of a chance to play Open Business in this meta, but I think it's just still the same old brawlers really here. The brawlers that you got to be careful of are those control brawlers at the top. So, you know, Stu, again, absolutely insane. Meeple, absolutely insane. It's a little bit easier to go those tanky options though to counter the Meeples and the Stus here, so do be careful of that. So, you know, for example, if you pick Meeple first pick, be cautious of those Poco Frank combinations that can counter you a little bit. Melody's really good later on in the draft to get some zone time. Again, you want that one brawler that has a good amount of HP that will just, maybe he's got limited range, but he's going to sit behind these walls and he's going to get you so much pressure. You're going to get some really good zone times. That's why I really like Ollie. That's why I really like Cole. That's why I like Melody. That's why I like Chester, for example. That's why I like Finks again in Hot Zone, because he's got a decent amount of HP. He's going to get you that zone time that you desperately need. The other late picks I would worry about, to be honest, are the likes of Hank, Draco, and Mortis. Those are the only ones you got to worry about. So don't go like really squishy brawlers, or else you're probably going to get ran all over by those late picks. So now moving on to Parallel Plays here, your best picks on your screen right here. So Parallel Plays, I hate this map, to be honest. I really hate it with randoms, because there's just a lot of nonsense that goes on. So the typical thing you've got to do on Parallel Plays that I always say, if you send one person down the left-hand lane, which is a tank counter, or that can shoot over walls, so that can defend easily, then you want a mid-brawler that can just be anything, just like a Stu, maybe even a thrower, a Janet, something just with some decent range and pinch potential. And then you want something aggressive down the right-hand lane, but even aggressive brawlers are just pretty difficult to work with most of the time. So it comes down to team synergy on this map, basically. So again, making sure they got one good defensive brawler, whether that's like a Lu, whether that's like a Larry and Laurie defensively, it could be an RT even, it could be like Chester, I don't know, something defensive. Your mid options could be like Gray's really good at pinching with a Walking Cane gadget, it could be a Stu, it could be that in-between brawler, Lumi, Meeple, a lot of good options. And then down the right, you want something aggressive, so you want like a Chuck maybe with some cheesy post strategies. You've got like a Mortis that can get to the zone, you've got a Hank, you've got a Shade, you've got like a Buzz, there's a lot of good options here. Just making sure that you got all bases covered. You're not getting countered by a tank just running down, so you need DPS down the left. Not getting countered by those throwers, so you need something aggressive that can counter them. There's a lot to consider. Finally, for Hot Zone, we have Ring of Fire here. Your best picks on your screen right here. So I will say, my opinion's changed a little bit since doing this graphic. I think Bo is a lot better than I'm getting him credit for, especially in Hot Zone, but in Ring of Fire in particular, I think he's absolutely insane. So I would probably knock him to one of the best brawlers in Ring of Fire, probably near where Lou is on the graphic. But yeah, in terms of Ring of Fire, it's the same type of strategy. So can go with like a B in the middle, but do be careful because like a Bell can counter the B in the middle. Your good lane brawlers, you want to try and create some good pressure and get into the opponent's grass. So that's why I really like Juju, for example. That's why I really like a Janet pushing in behind. That's why I really like, I'm trying to think of some other good examples. I don't know, like Penny can be really good with the turret, just constant pressure. That's why, you know, Mortis can get in behind enemy lines pretty easily. That's why like Tara can spam the gadgets and get in behind. So you've got to have all bases covered. So what I like doing most of the time is that I will send one person in the mid. At least one of your brawlers have got to try and create the pressure down and get in the enemy grass. And then one person is going to help your mid and not allow anybody to get in your grass. So two people somewhat mid, one person up, and you should be good to go. So in terms of Ring of Fire, I think there's just so many brawlers that you can go, but I don't notice too many like draft differences here. There's just so many options. Finally, moving on to Knockout here, best picks on your screen for Bell's Rock. So with Bell's Rock, there's a lot that goes on in terms of snipers. Late picks aren't really like guaranteed success on Bell's Rock. I don't think they're that strong. But anyways, the best picks are going to be Mandy. Of course, Mandy can just lock down a lane. Hypercharge, do even need to talk about it. Gray with unlimited walking canes. Jean's just good into everything. Angelo with a Pierce gadget, and just not really many brawlers actually fully counter Angelo, so really good. Lumi's going to be really good as long as you're not facing off against wall breaks. I think that main attack is just completely busted. And then Ollie again, because there's not a lot of Ollie counters in Knockout and Bounty. Your typical sniper's going to be good down the lane. You know, your Bells, your Pipers, Gus, Artie, you name it, your snipers are going to be pretty decent. Byron can be good to counter certain compositions. Where did I say Byron? Brock, I mean, to open up the map, etc. And then you've got Nanny can be good to counter other snipers still. Even on a map like Bell's Rock, you can use Nanny pretty effectively. Throw is going to be good. So the kind of theme here is that you want like one person in the mid who is either a thrower, Jean, Gray, or something like that that can pinch like a Rico. I didn't include him on the list, but he's still okay. And then you want like a sniper, which is going to be just good at getting pressure. And then maybe someone that's kind of like a hybrid sniper, so like an Angelo that can create pressure. Gus, for example, I really like RT, you know, his hybrid, he can push up, you know, one that's not squishy. So that's why I like for like Pearl, you know, he's not a sniper, but can push up the map. Leon, because if you can get pressure on Bell's Rock and force the opponent's back, it's just a lot easier to get kills. So now moving on to Flare and Phoenix, so your best picks on your screen right here. So this is a map that I don't really get along with too well, just because it's a lot of sneaking in bushes. There's a lot of like trying to catch the opponents off guard. So normally what you do in Flare and Phoenix is send one player down the left and two people in the middle, making sure that you've got that one sniper in the middle, make sure no one's pushing down the far right, whether it's a thrower trying to push you back, you know, you've got that wide right angle pinch. And then left lane's normally where your thrower sits, or maybe like another sniper. So good late picks here. Definitely watch out for the Kit Daryl combinations. They are definitely deadly on this map. So that's why, again, I like either going RT, I like either just banning Kit or Daryl if you have first pick, you may as well just ban one of those two brawlers, because even Daryl as a standalone brawler can be pretty solid here. Your throws are going to be really good later on in the draft as well, so don't go free snipers, you're just destined to lose. So again, you want that one hybrid brawler, so whether that's like an Angelo, whether that's even a Juju's technically like a hybrid, Jean, Gray, the likes of RT, Leon, Carl, etc. Then you want your sniper, then you want kind of like a thrower or a tank that can get you some good pressure. So now moving on to New Horizons here, your best picks on your screen right here. So New Horizons is a little bit of a weird one. So wall breaks can be so devastating to the opponents, because there are some cheesy strategies that can go under the radar. So I've not included Buster here, but there can be like, so for example, if the opponents are literally picked no wall breaks, which is very rare. So if they've gone, I don't know, like a Juju, they've gone Bell, and they've gone Gus, I don't know, weird combination, even Leon. But what you can actually do is you can either go throw a late pick, or you can go like a Buster, and you could just sit behind a wall. And because you've got Buster and the gas closes in, those type of brawlers really excel on New Horizons. But then you've got to consider there's a lot of wall break options like Jean, there's Tick with Tickhead even, there's Gray with Walking Cane, there's Piper to break open the map. There's a lot of brawlers that really excel on a map like New Horizons. But then again, it was all down to your lane assignments. So you have normally that sniper in the middle, you've got maybe like throw versus throw down one lane, you maybe got like some aggression going down in the other lane. but you got to be careful of everything because throwers can really dominate and tanks can really dominate. So I think the common theme here is make sure you got at least one brawler here that can break open the walls, because any thrower tank left just untouched behind the walls, they will just win automatically on this map. So moving on to the final map, we have Out in the Open here. Your best picks on your screen right here. So the same old with Out in the Open, but snipers will definitely fare a lot better in comparison, where you don't have to really think too much about those tanks or throwers, so just all sniper heavy, to be honest. So that's why, again, if the opponent has last pick or second and third pick, then I ban Nanny, because Nanny's such a good counter to so many snipers out there. But you don't want to first pick Nanny because the opponents could just go, I don't know, like Max and a Meg and just run at you. Anyways, so good snipers here. Mandy always good. Angelo good because you can float down the left hand side. Piper good because of the gadgets and open it and just spam gadgets. And then you've got your super that can open up that back wall. That's why I really like Brock as well, because on a map like Out in the Open is you can get pinched back really easily. You know, if one person goes down weak, they've got to retreat all the way down the right, and if the opponents push up, then you'll just spawn traps and they'll easily win the round. So that's why I always recommend as well on Out in the Open that you've got a brawler that can create pressure. So normally I like maybe like 2 snipers and then like a bit more of a high HP brawler down the right hand lane to force the opponents back into the left top corner. So that's why I really like, I don't know, Pearl can sneak in the back bush and pop open and type gadget, but normally like an RT maybe that can push down the right, maybe like a Carl, maybe a Gus, just something a bit tankier that's not too prone to just getting double tapped by a couple of those snipers. Late picks, again, I won't really worry about them, they're not too effective. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I think there's a lot of the same picks that you can go on a lot of different maps. The meta's a lot more balanced than the previous one, where you could just literally just go unlimited brawlers and all of them are broken. Now it's a bit more calculated, but it's still the brawlers that you're probably used to. But yeah, that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.